Okay, I think this is probably running at the moment. So, hey, this is Yazuki Wolf. I'm sorry, this is about 23 hours late. Had some business to attend to yesterday and some plans I had to take care of. So, um, I delayed it by 23 hours, but I did say that I would do this every week. So here we are again. And the topic for today is how I got into the gaming industry in Japan. Hold on a second. I'm getting some feedback from the. Hold on a second. Okay, there we go. All right. So, let's see here. Last time I looked at the video and it looked like the file I was drawing with was a bit too heavy. So it seemed like there was a lot of I don't know if lag is the right word, but you couldn't really see what I was drawing. It was kind of like pixelated. So I'm trying a pre-recorded drawing this time just to see how that streams. And I don't know, we may do another pre-record that next time or try something else differently. I don't know. But for now, let's just kind of see how this works out while we talk about our topic. So people who've watched my older videos probably heard about my whole experience of trying to become a manga artist in Japan. And in my last video, I talked a little bit about why I ended up leaving that behind and like stopping the whole idea of doing manga. And I won't go too much into the reasons for that here, but just to make a long story short, I decided eventually that the gaming industry was probably a better fit for me, and so I switched over to a gaming major at my school. I went to design Semmongakko. I guess you could call that sort of like a vocational school. And I went there for 3 years. First 2 years were studying manga, and the last year I switched to gaming. And it was particularly, I think it was character design and gaming illustration. I don't remember exactly, but mostly 2D gaming. I did take a class in 3D, but ended up stopping that after the first like semester or so because it didn't seem to be going where I wanted to go. But I'll go into that a little bit later. But anyways, so comparing getting a job in the gaming industry versus getting a job in the manga industry, one big difference is I think I was mentioning before how to get a job in the manga industry or to become a manga artist, you don't really need to go to school for it. For the most part, if you just have if you have a portfolio of work, if you have manga that you've made, you can just call a publisher directly or like the magazine and editor directly and just say like I have a 32-page manga. Would you like to see it? And they'll usually just say, okay, when can we make an appointment? And then you come into the building and then you sit down with them and you show them the manga. And there really isn't a lot of concern about what school you've studied at or what work you've had in the past. You don't need a resume or anything like that. So it's very much just a matter of just doing the work and bringing it in and showing it to them. So I think for manga, I wouldn't necessarily recommend going to school because there's no particular benefit you get from that unless you just happen to go to a good school that teaches you a lot of things you couldn't learn outside of school. As for gaming, however, I think it probably is somewhat beneficial to have a school background in gaming, and just because for the gaming industry, for the gaming companies to get interviews and things, you can't just like call up Square Enix and say like, hey, I have a game idea, will you come see me? You know, that it doesn't really work that way. You have to have, there's more of a screening process, and it's a little bit more difficult to get those interviews and to be able to meet with the people that would be giving you the jobs. So I think that there was some benefit for having that school degree. And also, I think there's a lot of things you could learn in school that may be difficult to learn outside of school, since gaming is more of a group project, while manga, it's more like you come up with the concept for the manga, the storyline, and you draw out the name, and then you draw out the finished pages. For gaming, it's more of a team effort, especially within a company setting. When you're doing indie games, maybe you could do stuff more on your own, but when you're getting a job within a company, it's more of a team setting. So there's a lot of things you need to learn about working with other people, and just this general process of how a gaming company would work. So how did I get interviews? There's three main areas where I was able to get interviews from. The first is school job fairs. And I think I mentioned this a little bit before when I was talking about manga, but basically this is just events that the school would have every once in a while where a bunch of companies would come directly to the school and they would just see people's portfolios all day. And keep in mind, when I'm talking about portfolios, you also probably need a resume. So it'd be your portfolio with your your art as and a resume as well, giving like some background about what your major is, what school you're at, and what you'd like to do. The whole resumes in Japan, that may be enough a topic for another video, even if people were interested. But yeah, they're pretty in depth, and they want it to be handwritten usually. I ignored that because I knew that as a foreigner I could get away with not handwriting it, because there's no way I was going to handwrite a resume every time I go to interview at a different company. So, but yeah, it's usually like the resumes are like 2-3 pages, and they have like, you have to give like short essays about why you think you would be good for the company, and like what you think is like your strong points and your weak points, and like it's fairly intensive. So I just made the best resume I could in I think in Word, and then just printed out a bunch of those. And if people ask me why I didn't handwrite, I just say like, well, you know, I it's hard for me to write kanji or something, and just come up with some kind of excuse. Usually, but for the most part, people never asked me, because as a foreigner, they kind of give you a little more leeway in that area. And a lot of people were just really surprised just to even see me like in the interviews, because since I'm in the school with all Japanese students, like to have a foreigner walk, like after 100 Japanese students, when a foreigner comes in, they're like, oh, what's this? You know, and it's kind of like, it perks their interest. So that leads to, I guess, the next point about that is that the school job fairs are good in the one way, because you get to see a lot of companies at once. But in the other way, the companies are also seeing a lot of people at once, so they don't give you the same one-on-one attention that they would otherwise. There's usually like a pressure to be like, okay, well, let's just see what he's got, and then okay, let's go on to the next person if it doesn't intrigue us right away. So like, whereas before I probably talked about in the manga industry, like, or when you're going to bring your manga into different publishers, even if they have no interest in your work at all, they may still sit with you for like 20 minutes or so and just tell you what you can do to get better. And I think for a lot of my classmates, they didn't really have that in the job fairs, because you know, they were just one student out of a huge number of students that that they're seeing that day. And so like that, oh, hold on one second, I need to change some settings real quick. All right, now it looks like it's okay. All right. But yeah, what was I saying? So yeah, for since there's just one student of many, it's hard for the companies to give them like a really one-to-one time with that. But with me, since I was a foreigner, there's a little bit more, what you call, leeway, where that they would see that you're not just another Japanese student, and they see that you're a foreigner, and that would then kind of perk their interest a little bit and allow you to have a little bit more conversation in that area. Like, hold on one second, I'm still trying to figure out how to see the chat in this. Is it here? Okay, cool. So just want to make sure that that's open. All right. So yeah, so I actually met some interesting companies there. There were a lot of people that are just really interested to see that I was a non-Japanese person living in a Japanese, not living, but working at a Japanese company. Sorry, a non-Japanese student in a primarily Japanese school. Hold on one second, I have to switch videos real quick. Yeah, I'm sorry, I haven't gotten the system quite perfectly down yet, but we'll get it down in the next couple of videos or so. All right, there we go. So that's just continuation of that pre-recorded drawing that I was doing. There you go. All right, so moving on to the next place to go to get interviews. So the first one was the school job fairs, and there's also school like job events and just different things that you could find outside of your school as well. But they're basically the same type of situation where you just have a bunch of companies that you could meet. And the second place, main area that you go to get interviews is websites. The main one I would use for the gaming industry is a place called gamejob.com, and I'll put a link in there in the description. But it's all in Japanese, so you probably would have to have some ability with Japanese to be able to navigate the site. But that's a good place specifically for gaming jobs, and they'll just show you a lot of different jobs that are available within different fields of gaming, and you can apply for those directly. And you put your resume and everything, and maybe like if you have a website, you could link to your website and different things directly on the site, and then that goes to the to the companies, and the companies will choose who they want to have an interview with, and then they'll contact you and tell you that they want to interview. So like there's a lot more filtering with the game industry rather than like the manga industry where you generally just call and get an interview. With the game industry, it's more like a mass what you call it, applications where you just apply to as many places as possible and then wait for the responses. And so the gamejob.com, that's a good website. Another one is Rikunabi. That's not specifically for gaming, but it's a general like Japanese job hunting website. And that's another thing I'll have to talk about a little bit, is that in Japan, the period of time that places are looking to hire new people is kind of more rigid than outside of Japan, because in Japan, generally, there's a very determined flow of how people get into an industry. Is that you go to school, and then after you're finished with school, after finishing with school, then you look for jobs, and then you start your job like the next year in January, February, in March or April is usually when you start a job. So that means that most of the companies, the closer it gets to March or April, the less likely it is that they're still looking for people to hire people. So there's like a specific sort of period of time that people do their job hunting. And so the websites are kind of set up that way too, where like for the Rikunabi website, I believe you have to be graduating your school like the next year or something in order to register with the website. So once again, going back to how having that school education actually has a bit more of a benefit in the gaming field, is that in order to actually even use that website, you may have to be in a school. So there's some rigidity there. The third place is agencies, and this is actually where I actually finally did get my job, was by using an agency. I met a lot of people with the school job fairs, and I went to a number of interviews with the websites, but ultimately it was the agency that helped me the most. I went to 2 different agencies. Just to describe real quick what an agency is, it's basically just a company that takes your information, your portfolio, and your resume, and they'll send it out to numerous companies, and they just do the legwork for you to find the different places for you to that are interested in having an interview with you. And the first place I went to really wasn't that impressive, because they got all my information, and they were like they went to find companies for me, but then they ended up only finding, I think, 1 interview for me, and it was a company that I wasn't really that keen on, and I think I went to that 1 interview, and then that was it, and I never heard from that company again. So it's like, oh no, didn't really mean much. But then the second place I went to, and I really wish I could remember the name of it, but I'll try, if I find the business card or something in the future, I'll try to mention it again. But this place, the guy working there was really great. He got all my information. He sent my application out to I think 30 something plus companies, and he had like interviews lined up for me. Like every week I'd have like an interview every couple of days. It'd be like 3 interviews a week, and I was just going through all these interviews, and like a lot of places seemed pretty interesting to me. And I actually first I got an internship that I did for about a week, and it seemed like a pretty cool company. But while I was doing the internship, I also had another interview with another company, which is the one that I'm working for now, and they hired me right out, and they basically just asked how much would you want for us to pay you in order for you to give up the internship and just come work with us. And so I gave them a fairly round figure, and we worked that out. And so then I finished the internship, and the other place was like, well, if you have anything in the future that you want to do with us, let us know. And we kind of parted ways, and then I went to the other company. And I think for the most part I'm happy with how that went, because the first place with the internship, it was it was a company with over 50 people, maybe 60 or so, and it was much more structured. And how do I say, the entry level job was a lot lower. So the type of stuff I was doing during the internship was mostly just translating things from English into Japanese, or just debugging a game that they already made and stuff. But the company I ended up working for was a smaller company. There was about 10 people when I first entered, and right from the beginning I was already working on game design. And the game that we actually are releasing this year is actually a game that I was the lead game designer on. I'll put the link in there in the description as well. It's the game called Archetype. We made a board game first, and then we made the original digital version of the game now. Also, another thing about that I kind of want to touch on is that I think in the end, what really helped me get a job, because I have to kind of make it a little more clear that this was not like an easy process. After I graduated from school, I was looking for jobs for, I think, at least a year after that, maybe longer. And I remember that when I finally did get the job, it was literally like a couple weeks away from like the end of my visa. So it was like if I hadn't gotten a job at that time, it was like I would have to like leave the country for a little bit or like try to get a visa through another job by like being like an English teacher or something. But it just was like, well, like very much down to the wire. Like if I don't get a job at this period, I don't know if I'm going to be really able to get a good job or not, or if I'm ever going to be able to do this or not. So part of the thing that helped me do that, now looking back at it, is that not only having the interviews and stuff, but also taking a proactive approach of doing stuff on your own. Like I actually made a card game for my my graduating project for school. Generally, the graduating project, most people they just make they just do like a really big illustration or something like that. But I felt like I needed to do more than that, so I told them that I just wanted to like design my own card game, and like I made a fully functional card game with like my own illustrations and everything. And then I brought that to conventions in Japan, and I was actually selling that at conventions on my own. And so when I had the interview for the job that I actually got, like I was able, instead of just being able to be like, well, here's my portfolio of some drawings I have, and here's my resume. I was able to like, here's my portfolio, here's my resume, and here is a game I designed, a fully functional game, like all packaged and everything, and I brought that out. And I think that was probably, looking back at it, that was probably the biggest convincing factor that helped me get the job. So those are the 3 places to get interviews. The next thing I want to talk about is the challenges to getting a job in the gaming industry. And I'm starting like blazing through this like super fast, but there's just a lot of stuff to cover. So generally, if you find anything that you want more information about, you can let me know about that in the comments, and I'll try to go into more depth about that in a future video. But so the next part was challenges that I faced that I encountered while I was trying to go through these interviews and things. And the first thing is 3D versus 2D. I find that I enjoy doing 2D more than 3D. Part of that may have been just because of the first class that I had in 3D. I didn't really like the way that my teacher taught. It was very much like, well, here's a textbook that I wrote, so just read that and follow the instructions. And there was like no like lectures or like actually like person to person like interactions. And I don't know, but I won't go into that too much. But just for the most part, I kind of felt more that 2D was what I want to do. But within the gaming industry, 2D is not in as big as a demand as 3D. So if you do 3D, you'll generally have an easier time getting a job, especially like 3D animation or 3D modeling. Those are in more high demand, whereas 2D, there is definitely a demand for it, especially now with mobile games using more 2D art. But there's also a huge surplus of people wanting to do 2D. So that makes it that even if there's demand, there's just such a surplus that it's hard to find a job in that area. Okay, switch videos again. All right. So where were we? Yep. So that's one thing just to keep in mind, that 2D is going to be generally harder than 3D. And the next thing is the moe style. Probably gonna have to do a whole nother video about moe style. That might actually be my next video, I'm not sure. But so there's a style in Japan called moe, and let's see here if I could think of a good example of it. Let's see here. What was the one that's kind of popular now? Mado Marika, the Majo Shoujo girl manga or anime. I don't know if you know that or not, but anyways, like it's very much based on having a very like cute, big eye, like wide-eyed girls, usually semi-sensualized. So I don't know. I'll have to like go like research exactly like how to describe moe k a little bit more. But if you're interested, just search moe on the internet, and you could probably get a Google search and see sort of what it is. But for the most part, it's sort of like a modern, a sort of recent style in Japanese anime that has become exceedingly popular. And so what that means is that older stuff or like different styles that are not moe are much harder to sell, and or to convince people to give you a chance on. So things like that I used to really like, manga and anime that I used to like I'll give you some examples, things that are not moe style, like Ghost in the Shell or Akira, or like let's see here, uh, Samurai Champloo, not really. Yeah, Samurai Champloo is not really moe either. Or like Vagabond, um, Blade of the Immortal, um, like Blade of the Immortal, Vagabond, Fist of the North Star. Like those are things that I used to really like that are not moe, and basically that just means it's more of like a realistic, it's closer to realistic proportions. And you can kind of see like this character that I'm drawing in this recording. This is me like trying to adapt more of the moe style. So you can see how it has like the larger eyes and um, like kind of like deformed features and stuff. That's sort of what's popular now. So that's like I try to like learn that, and I'm trying to like get some influence from it because that's what's popular here. But originally my background's more in like more of a realistic art style, and so a lot of times I would go to interviews, and they'd immediately be impressed by the realism of my art, or like how it looks, because they'd be like, oh, if we were going to sell a game to a foreign company, or if we were going to like try to market a game toward um, like abroad outside of Japan, like this stuff would be really great, you know, and they'd be really impressed with it. But then they would kind of like sober up and be like, but our company is still kind of small and we're mainly focused in Japan, so we don't really have a lot of work for this, you know. And that was something that came up a lot, where it's like originally they'd be really impressed with it, and that, but like they'd say like, but then this isn't something that we really have a lot of use for, because generally if you don't fit into that moe style, it's there's not a lot you can do about, there's not a lot of work that they have for you. And so that's why I had to kind of change my approach from being like a trying to get a job as a 2D designer or 2D artist, to being more of like a planner, because having the experience of being both in Japan and in America became a plus in that area. Because if you're a game designer, like you're the one planning the game, it's good to have lots of knowledge about games outside of Japan and inside of Japan. And so that became more of a plus that I could work with. And in the end, I think I got a job as like a game planner plus designer, because like the place I work at, my boss, he likes to hire people that can do more than one thing. So he liked that I had game planning skills where I could actually like design game functions and stuff, like because I showed him like I made my card game and everything. Plus I could draw, so he could use me for drawing too. And so then, I mean, this is probably going a little bit off topic, but when I did get that job, I still had to figure out the moe thing, the moe style thing, because he liked that I could draw, but like it was still like this thing, like, well, you can draw, but it doesn't look cute enough, you know. There's always this thing like, oh, it's not kawaii, like kawaii kunai, like it doesn't look cute. And I guess that's the big thing with like moe style, whereas like where I grew up, like trying to make things look cool, or like hardcore and stuff like that, like from the American like side of things. Like here, it's all like making it like cute and like bubbly, and I don't know how to describe moe very well, but I'll try to like look into that and maybe make another video in the future if you're not familiar with it, or if you are familiar with it, like put in the description, like tell me what's how you would define moe, what you think moe means. All right, so moving on. Some questions you might have is whether or not you need to speak Japanese to work in the gaming industry in Japan. And I would say yes and no. For the most part, the type of work that I'm doing, yes. Anything that involves like game planning, where you're actually like planning out the game, that definitely you need to have a lot of you're going to be in a lot of meetings explaining how the game works and things, and like explaining your vision behind the game. So you need a very high Japanese level. Like I don't even think my Japanese is high enough. Like I'm still trying to like learn more every day, because like you're in a meeting where everyone else is all mostly native Japanese speakers, and you have to express to them your vision and like get them on board with what you're thinking. And sometimes it's hard to really do that, because like you may only have like a minute or so to talk in a meeting, and then you have to like really make it like strong and like and make sure that everyone understands you, and then you have to be able to understand their objections that they might have afterwards, and be able to respond to those too. So that's been a challenge for the last like 2 years that I've been working here. But yeah, so in that area, yes, and also with the art, with the like 2D design and stuff, it's beneficial to know it, because when they want to know that they can like clearly express to you what they're looking for and what they want you to do, and what they want you to work on. So it's all about that communication. But you may be able to find more places that will forgive a lack of Japanese ability when you're just the one that's receiving the orders. You know, when you're just receiving like, oh, please do this drawing or something. And if you're good enough at your art where it's not, where, how you say, so like if there was two people that were exactly the same skill, but one person spoke Japanese and one person didn't, they'd probably take the person who spoke Japanese. So if your art is so good that there aren't many people at the same skill level as you, then that will get to a point where it's like, well, there may be some communication issues, but this guy is like super amazing, so you know we'll deal with it. Then where it becomes more less of an issue is when you go into like programming. Generally, there's a high demand for jobs in like programming, especially if you know things like, if you know how to use Unity, the Unity engine or anything like that. Those are really like those are in high demand here. There's not as many people here that can really do that well. So there's generally a more of an acceptance to get people outside of Japan that don't speak the language perfectly, even to work in areas like that. And I've actually had friends who spoke very little Japanese who worked as programmers. And the only thing about that though is like the way that I got a job was I actually went to a Japanese school, went through the Japanese job hunting process, and went to like the Japanese companies and everything. And so like for that, you'd obviously have to speak Japanese. But if you didn't speak Japanese, the best way I'd recommend to do it is to get a job outside of Japan, to get experience outside of Japan, and then transfer into Japan. Because if you have no experience, it's going to be very hard for them to take the risk of like hiring you if you don't have like that experience in Japan and you don't speak Japanese. But if you have experience outside of Japan, they know that you know how to use Unity, you know programming, you know this or that, then it's a whole different ball game, and they'll be like, okay, well, we already know that he's established, he has an experience, so we can hire him and feel assured that he'll be able to do this job, he or she. So that's the general gist of it. I think most of my friends who don't speak a lot of Japanese, who got jobs here in the gaming industry, generally transferred in from abroad. Going through the actual schooling system like me is kind of a rare case, and that's why I kind of mentioned earlier how people would be really surprised to see me. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. My reel of footage is about to run out. So let me just talk a little bit about this drawing that I was doing. I think a second ago I was kind of breaking it down here. So generally, this is just like a practice sketch, because like for like a warm up, sometimes I'll just do a lot of sketches of poses from like posemaniac.com. Highly recommend that website as well if you want to do practice drawings. And then after doing a couple of those, I'll usually just like kind of invest in a little bit more color work with one drawing. And this was like one of those practice sketches. And I think in a second I'll kind of break down the layers, and you'll see that this is not the style that I draw when I'm at work, because at work they really want you to have like an outline and have like the line work and everything. But I'm trying to like make more of like my own type of style. So what I usually do is I have the outline here, like the rough sketch is not even an outline yet, and then I'll just start painting underneath that without doing any line work, and then just slowly taking the outline away as I add more layers. And I kind of like the way that it looks at the end, because the crispness of not having like those crisp layers that are kind of separated and the colors are kind of separated, but not having actual line work. It kind of has a real, I don't know, interesting look to me, and I think I want to explore more of that, and that's something I'm doing on my own. But here you can kind of see, like, we add like some burnt layers to like add some darkness to it. Around the line, around the eyes, it's kind of close to line work, but I mean, because you want to have that crispness around the eyes so you can see. So, and then you have the hair layer, of course. And I think at the end we do the clothing, and then at the end I think I'll take, like, you can still see the line, the rough sketch lines on top of it, but at the very end I should take that away, and then you could kind of see the final effect. Oops, that was the wrong layer apparently. Okay, there you go. So then you drop the outline, and that's basically how it ends up looking. So I don't know. I'll see how this actually looks on the stream, because last time on the stream it looked like you really couldn't see much of what I was drawing. It was all pixelated. So I wanted to see if maybe having a pre-recorded sketch would make a difference or not. And another thing I might try is I might just try using less color work and maybe doing more line work on the stream, because I think that kind of like it doesn't lag as much. But I'll just test out a couple things and see how that works. And that's pretty much all for today. Let's see here. Try to do the same around the same time next week. So let's see here. Try to do what day? So it's gonna be It's gonna be Sunday night or Sunday afternoon for me. So it's gonna in Pacific Standard Time. That will translate to be Saturday night at 9 p.m. So that's what I'm gonna try to do for next week. And if I need to change that, I'll leave an announcement or something. But that's what I'm shooting for. And we're definitely gonna do this once every week. I'm not completely sure what the topic's gonna be next week. So if you have any requests, go ahead and put them down below. And yeah, till next time, yoroshiku.